Can we take essential oils as supplements? That's our topic for today, so let's talk about this. I'm Dr. Peter Minke, this is Minke Wellness, and there seems to be some controversy on the internet and out there in the aromatherapy world as to whether essential oils would be considered as supplements. Okay, so let me clarify a few things on this topic and then show you how we use them as supplements, and then I want to share with you some of how I use them in my therapeutic breath system and how I connect with that in my body and what they do. Okay, so first of all, there's a general rule that says, some people will say, and a lot of times if you see on the bottles, if essential oil products, that they say for aromatic use only, never ever ingest, etc., etc. So let me address this issue first of all. If you're dealing with a synthetic compound, a synthetic fragrance, these synthetic fragrances, as I've mentioned already, can be contaminated with phthalates. They can have other byproducts in them, very toxic byproducts that are coming from the manufacturing process. These byproducts and these contaminants and these solvents and these things are very bad for us. So if you're dealing with a bad quality essential oil, then I would argue that not only do you not want to ingest it, but you don't want to put it on your skin either, because these volatile compounds and solvents and things will penetrate through the skin into the bloodstream, and then when we inhale those, they can penetrate through the lungs and into the bloodstream. So if you've got a bad quality essential oil that's just a synthetic fragrance oil that's been adulterated with phthalates and other kinds of nasty compounds, you don't want it at all. You don't even want it in your life. Okay, so let's make sure that we're talking about, if we're talking about real essential oils, then it's a different thing. Okay, now if we're talking about real essential oils where we are talking about in a branch of herbalism, okay? In other words, this is an herbal extract, just like you would have drink an herbal tea. If you drink peppermint tea, there is a small amount of peppermint oil in that tea. So you already are ingesting peppermint oil if you're drinking peppermint tea. If you drink tea with thyme, the herb thyme tea, then that has thyme oil in it, and in small quantities. So the question is not whether they're safe to take internally, because we're already taking them internally. It ends up being a quantity issue. Okay, so let's completely erase the fallacy that essential oils can never be used internally. That is complete hogwash. Of course they can be used internally. They already are used internally. If you have eaten a peppermint candy, you have had peppermint oil, or probably a derivative of peppermint oil, probably even a synthetic menthol that's not even real peppermint oil. Okay, if you've been eating lemon drop candy, then you've been eating that in a lemon oil or some derivative of fake lemon oil in that candy. Okay, so the FDA does actually not define, it doesn't define an essential oil, and so a bottle can say essential oil, and it can be completely synthetic, manufactured essential oil, and it's not even, of course we don't call that essential oils, but the FDA does not make that distinction. So your labeling on the bottle does not protect you from the synthetic versions of things, because the FDA doesn't require any distinction between a synthetic methyl salicylate, for example, and then something that is actual wintergreen oil that came from a wintergreen plant. Okay, so let's assume for a moment, though, that we are actually dealing with authentic essential oils that are coming from real plants. Okay, now the question is, what are we talking about in dosages? Okay, and because the dosage now becomes relevant in terms of, is this something that we would take 1 drop or 15 drops or 100 drops? How many drops are we dealing with before it becomes an issue? Okay, and so when you look at flavoring recommendations in the food industry, for example, you'll find that the food industry has recommendations for lemon oil, for example, at 240 parts per million for a non-alcoholic beverage. And it goes up if you have an alcoholic beverage, because if you add alcohol, then it actually it reduces your ability to taste, and so your flavor content. So now let me give you perspective here. For lemon oil, for example, this 240 parts per million is 1 drop in 8 ounces. So that's basically, when you got your glass of water in the morning and you put your drop of lemon oil, that's about right. That is what's recommended for flavoring. Now, this is not a safety recommendation. The safety recommendation, it could be much, much higher than this. In fact, there's grams per kilo. It's 100 300 to 300 milligrams per kilogram. When you stretch that out, we're talking about 7 and 8 and 15 grams, okay, which means an entire bottle of lemon oil before you even have any signs of toxicity, and these signs of toxicity are very mild. We're talking about lemon oil. Other oils would be much less than that, but we're still dealing with, if for an adult-sized person, we're dealing with, you would have to be eating a lot of this before you even have the first mild signs of toxicity, and that's for the vast majority of essential oils, especially oils that we already know in the spice category that we would consider to be food oils. So what are these oils that we ingest? Young Living does the homework for you and puts these in a vitality line, and so these are oils that you might actually be better off ingesting. And how would I say that? Let's look at cinnamon oil, for example. If you were to put cinnamon oil on your skin, it's going to burn, right? But if you put it in, I mean, of course, you know cinnamon is a wonderful flavor, and if you've had a cinnamon candy, what are those? You know, the Red Hots, right, candies, and that's probably got a synthetic cinnamon oil in it, but that's, you know, you can feel it, the tingle and stuff in your mouth, but of course we're eating cinnamon oil. It's a wonderful flavoring agent. You're actually probably better off eating it than putting it on your skin, because when you eat the cinnamon oil, you're actually getting the mucus membrane in your system will protect the tissue from that heat that would be there from the thing. So what I'm saying is, I'm just in this example, when you look at an essential oil that's approved as a supplement and labeled as a supplement, which Young Living does this with the vitality oils, these are oils that you can take internally. Okay, so the quick answer to this is yes, of course, we can take these internally. So let me show you, we've been using our Laurus Nobilis, which again has this vitality label, which means that it's approved for internal use. And so let me show you the 3 ways that I would use ingesting to use this. So here's my water. Okay, now we know that essential oils are not fats, they're not water soluble, they're fat soluble. So if I put a drop in my water here, here's my 1 drop or 2 or so, and I don't know if you can tell, but in the top of that, it kind of floats on the surface. It really doesn't mix with the water, which of course, you know, that's oil and water don't mix. But that's one way that I can take my essential oil internally, is put it in a glass of water. And of course that essential oil is floating on the surface, so as soon as that hits my mouth, my mouth has more fat in it than the water does, and so immediately I feel those essential oil molecules penetrating into my tissue, because absorption when we eat something, our digestive system, when we eat a supplement, we expect that supplement to make it into the bloodstream. That's kind of the goal of a supplement. And so when we take something in the mouth, our body starts absorbing nutrients already in the mouth. We have enzymes in the mouth that starts breaking down sugar, et cetera, et cetera. So it's no surprise then that we talk about feeling the essential oil molecules immediately start to penetrate through the mouth directly into the bloodstream, already starting in the mouth. And you can feel that as you take an oil like this in the water. You feel that tingle and the whoosh, and as that essential oil molecules are going into the fat tissue, which means they move on in, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Another way to take the essential oils are in a capsule, and so here is one of these empty gel caps. Sorry, drop it on the floor. So here's our empty gel caps, and you can pull the cap off, right? And here's your cap off, and so you have the short part and the long part. If you can keep track of this little guy. And so what I would do is I would take my bottle and rest it on the opening and allow oil to dribble in. Okay, I'm not really worried about exactly how many drops, except I can just maybe fill up half a capsule here. If I try to drip it from up high, I'm probably going to miss and end up having this spill around the edges, and then of course I end up tasting it. If it's an oil that's pretty sharp, maybe you don't want to do that. So then anyway, once you've got the oil in there, about half a capsule, if you want about 4 or 5 drops, you can fill it on up to 10, full capsule with 10 or 12 drops. So here's my oil capsule. Now how long is that going to last? Not very long. It'll probably dissolve through this veggie cap in I don't know how many minutes. But some people will say if you make them up and put them in the freezer, they last a little bit longer. So anyway, here's my little veggie cap, and I can just take that internally. And then the third way that I use it, if I don't have a capsule and I don't have any water, just taking a drop under the tongue. And again, as a supplement, that's where I want it to go. I expect a supplement that I'm taking internally to make it into the bloodstream, so that's where I want it to go, and it will go directly into the bloodstream. Now I want to invite you for another minute or two to join me in how I think about these essential oils and what they do in the body from a supplement perspective. So I just mentioned that essential oils are fat soluble. So when they come into the body, and they move through the everywhere that there's fat. Well, in the body, the tissues in the cell is surrounded by a cell membrane, and the nucleus inside the cell is surrounded by a nuclear membrane, all of which is fat. And so one of the properties there are several properties that make essential oils very unique and potent as supplements. One is that they tend to be antioxidant in general. They just tend to be antioxidant. The other one is that they have this ability to move through membranes because they're fat soluble. And so they really help maintain a healthy membrane fluidity. Now let me talk about just a moment about how important it is to have membrane fluidity. When inside the cell, the membrane has to be fluid. If it gets stiff, things stop working. So we want to make sure that we have a healthy membrane fluidity, and that's where the essential oils can come in and keep that membrane moving, okay? And the membrane movement is so important for communication between cells, for transport of material across the cell membrane. These are critical cellular functions, okay? So one of the things that I do in my breathing when I think about the essential oils as a supplement, and I breathe them in, I feel them go into the bloodstream, and we're going to be doing a lot of this next month as we talk about the circulatory, the blood, and the lymph. But I breathe that in, and I make that connection to the oil that's moving into the tissue, and it helps me get that feeling of where all the cell membranes are and how that works. And so I imagine one of the things I really like about essential oils is I can feel the vitality and the potency of it. Because where do they come from? The essential oils are made by the plant. So I imagine I can feel in the energy of the oil, I can feel the sunlight and the leaves and the rain and the wind, all part of this process of building these essential oil molecules. So as I breathe in and I'm inviting that oil to penetrate into my blood, and I'm feeling that in the lungs, and I'm feeling that oil kind of move through my body, I can connect to and invite the vitality, that energy of the sunlight and all this amazing nature, liquid truth, right? The essential oils are liquid truth. It's an amazing array of compounds that the plant makes to do all kinds of things in the plant. But these are things that we connect with. We go out in the forest, we go out in a field, we go out in a garden, and we smell these aromatic compounds, and we make an immediate connection to those. And that's that vitality and the energy and the molecules vibrating, and that's how I think of it. I kind of geek out on all that stuff. So again, when I breathe in and I invite my body to accept, and I feel these the energies of these nutrients moving through my body and going through the membranes and maintaining healthy membrane fluidity. It's so important at a cellular level to have healthy membranes. And I don't know of much else in our supplement arsenal that can do this the way that essential oils can. And this is so important as part of this package that we've been doing all month, because as you know, we've been talking about getting rid of the partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, which will cause the membranes to become stiff and cause the cells to stop communicating properly and stop working properly. And so we don't want these stiff membranes. We need to get the partially hydrogenated vegetable oils out of our systems. And then we need to replace that with healthy things, good things that are going to help the cells maintain this healthy fluidity of the membrane system. And of course, the membrane's fluidity works all the way inside into the nucleus, into the DNA, accessing our DNA, and that is absolutely true at a cellular, molecular level. So anyway, I'm very excited about essential oils as supplements. Please don't let people who don't understand what they're talking about essential oils deceive you into thinking that you shouldn't take essential oils internally. These are things we've been taking internally and as supplements for hundreds of years, if not thousands. And so, again, you can rely on Young Living's Vitality line to give you the proper arsenal there, the proper direction. I mean, all these that are labeled vitality oils are totally fine as supplements. So happy oiling, happy wellness. We'll see you next month as we start into the circulatory system.